Good afternoon or good day, everybody. Thanks for attending the webinar today. Do more with Barcodes and RFID, presented by Motorola and PTS. My name is Brad Horn. I'm the CEO at PTS and making a little bit of a surprise appearance here. I wanted to just open it up a little bit, tell you a little bit about what PTS and TracerPlus is about and what our relationship is with Motorola. So I'm going to do a little bit of an intro before I turn it over to Kristen. So again, thanks for attending. I know everybody's working on skeleton budgets and crews nowadays, and that's really what the focus of the webinar is: how to do more with less budget through the use of barcodes, RFID, and mobile technology. PTS has been doing this for a long time, and I wanted to give you a little bit of history of what we do. PTS has been in business for 14 years in the mobile space. We started out in the old Palm OS. We actually started out with a high-end application, one of those $50,000 apps, and what we heard during the infancy of our company was, you know what, this is all well and good, but we just need to do this. We just need to do this. We just need to do this. Customers kept on echoing to us the need to just get certain little tasks done, or maybe big tasks done with the mobile computer. And they wanted to do things their way, and their project level, their scale. They didn't want to have all these bells and whistles. They just needed to do what they needed to do. So what we did is we went back to the drawing board, kind of scrapped what we created over a year, and created a very simple application that allows end users to actually configure mobile applications. And over the course of 14 years, we now have an application called TracerPlus that runs on the multiple platforms that are popular today with the enterprise barcode, mobile, and RFID terminals that allows you as the end user to create mobile applications without any programming to do pretty much anything, whether it be scanning an asset, which a lot of our users do, to maybe scanning people at an event, or maybe it's doing water testing. It allows you to do a lot of different things. So today, on today's webinar, we are going to really hopefully give you the information that you need to get started and do more with barcodes and RFID and take advantage of the technology that us and Motorola have put out there. And we gathered two of our end users to talk about what they've done with our projects, with our software. Let's get the next slide here. So as an introduction, Kristen, one of our channel account managers, is going to give an overview of the TracerPlus products. She's going to break down the different components of our products and really give you a high level, let's say a 30,000-foot view of what's possible with the TracerPlus software. The next presenter is going to be Joseph Crable. He's been with the company 10 years. Joe is what we call a solution architect. Joe works with end users in creating applications for them when they don't have the time. And around 80% of our applications are created by the end users, and 20%, let's say, are created by our internal team. Joe alone has created over 1,000 mobile solutions for customers. So that gives you an idea of the amount of experience Joe has creating apps for customers. So a lot to be had there, a lot of knowledge in his head, and he's going to give you what he can do in a matter of minutes with TracerPlus and show you what's possible. Then we're going to get into the real-world apps, what folks are doing. Scott Sloan from WIC up in Maine is going to, from the state of Maine, is going to show you what he did with a WIC program with TracerPlus that actually is being deployed nationwide amongst many different states. And then we have Bob Petrosek, one of our older users, who is at our local Brookhaven National Lab, who's I guess a super user of TracerPlus, does a lot of different things with it, and is actually doing chemical tracking with TracerPlus at the National Lab. And then finally, we have Rob Skoblicki. We've known Rob here at PTS for years when he was in the inside team at then Symbol Technologies, as many of you may know them as, and has been with us as a local account manager who works with the New York metro area end users, and who would be an account manager for those located in the Northeast. Rob's going to give us a product portfolio and what Motorola's been up to. Anyway, I'm going to turn it now over to Kristen and let her show you what TracerPlus is all about. Thanks so much, and again, thanks for making the time for us today.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. So what is TracerPlus? Oh, I would also like to say that we're going to try to answer some questions at the end of the webinar. So as we proceed, if you could just type in those questions in the question box that you see, we'll try to get to them. If we don't get to them, we collect them and we'll have an account manager contact you directly and help answer your questions. So what is TracerPlus? TracerPlus is it's software used to create mobile applications. So one way to think of it is if you have paper forms within your organization, you can take those forms and transform them into mobile applications using our software. And once the data is collected on the handheld device, we provide connection tools that allow you to connect that data from the device to the database. You can also populate the data from your database to the device. This helps a lot with increasing efficiencies and eliminating lots of errors. We connect with pretty much any ODBC database and also Excel spreadsheets. Our software can be created for barcode scanning as well as RFID. So essentially, you could take the same app, like an asset tracking application, that set it up as barcode scanning, and then also set up that same application with little effort into an RFID application later on, if that's the direction that you wish to take. On a side note, we are also the developers of the ClearStream RFID software, and that is software used on fixed RFID readers for portals, say like a check-in, check-out kind of thing. Also to track your assets and people as well. So our websites, both TracerPlus.com and ClearStreamRFID.com, offer a wealth of information, and we're always available to answer any questions you might have. So, asset tracking. This is one of the most popular ways our end users worldwide use our software to create asset tracking applications. You can see from this screenshot that you can essentially make any application look and flow as you want it to do using our tools. One real-world example is the Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade up in Canada. Deployed over 200 RFID applications worldwide, using it to track furniture and assets within their embassies. They were able to streamline the process. What typically would take 3 hours to inventory one embassy, they can literally do in 10 minutes using our TracerPlus application. And they're also able to connect that data to an SAP system, which some of you may be familiar with. Inventory, this is another popular application. And all of these screenshots that you see on the screen today can be found on our website. So we offer applications on our website for free that you can install on your PC using our software to modify, make changes, and then deploy to the device. The TracerPlus is licensed per device, so you actually purchase a mobile client license to run these applications. But to create the applications, that's all free of charge. So inventory, you can run entire inventories or just a component of an inventory to, say, a bigger system like a MAS 90 or SAP. We have several people, actually Miami-Dade down in Florida uses our applications to track over 10,000 of their capital assets. And they did this without enlisting their IT department to do it. It was actually a local logistics service manager that found our software and was able to create the application and deploy it to a Motorola device and start tracking his capital assets so that at any given time he could produce a report to his management team. The state of Montana uses TracerPlus to track their IT equipment. And what once took 5 days shutting down their business for 5 days to do an inventory now only takes 2 days to do it with the TracerPlus application. And then my third slide here is a check-in and check-out application. This is popular for holding people accountable and responsible for assets. It could be anything from IT equipment to military guns. The New Zealand Defense Army uses TracerPlus. They started out with barcodes to track their military equipment, and now they're using RFID. So they were able to quickly transition and easily transition from barcode to RFID. We run on a number of devices, and you can see from this screenshot, this is actually a tablet that we run on. So, all right, so I will now turn it over to Joe, who's going to demonstrate the software that I spoke about, where you can actually create the applications.
Thank you, Kristen. Hello, everyone. So I'm going to try to make this quick. What I'm going to do is create an asset tracking application from scratch, just to show you how quickly and easy it is to actually create these applications. So I'm going to close the PowerPoint, and I'm going to open our desktop software. I'm also going to show you how you can take a database of assets and sync them over to your device. So let's say we have, I have an Access database I created here for this webinar. And let's say we have a list of assets here, IT assets being desktop PCs, servers, monitors, laptops, and so forth. So we want to create an application to take these assets, load them to a device, then be able to scan those assets and set who they were issued to, or maybe we're doing monthly or quarterly asset audits to see that the assets are still in fair condition, as well as that they're still where they're supposed to be. So you'll see some fields we have here of asset tag, asset type, make, model, serial number, a purchase date, its current location, who it's assigned to, its current condition, and when it was last modified. So I'm going to create an application that's going to be able to accept this data, and then we can issue and audit some of these assets. So this is our desktop tool, which is free to try. And you can actually get this from TracerPlus.com. So what I'm going to do is create a new project, and we're going to call that project IT Asset Tracking. You can also choose a platform that you're using this on. In this case, I'm going to be using a Windows mobile device. But if you had an Android device, you could select Android here. So we have this concept of sessions, which is basically a form with a data table behind it. So in this case, we're going to have 2 sessions, one being an asset scan, and the other being our asset list. So I'm going to work on our asset list first and add all of our fields that we had in our database here. So first we have our asset tag, and we have our type, our make, model, serial number, purchase date. We also have a location, assigned to, condition, and last modified. So now what we're going to do is be able to take this data from our asset database and upload that to a device running this same type of application. So the first thing I want to do here is now define our asset scan. So we're actually going to scan some of these assets and either issue them or audit them. So in this particular session, this will basically create a repository of transactions done on each asset over time, while also updating that asset list with the most current information. So first we're going to scan our asset. Then we're going to have our type, our make, model, serial, date of purchase, as well as our location assigned to, condition, and we want a date of this activity. So if we actually look at our asset scans table, we have an asset tag, location, who it's assigned to, its condition and date, as well as a transaction type. So if you're looking to do multiple transaction types, whether tracking, whether it's an asset issue versus an asset audit, we can actually add a field to capture that data. So that's what I'm going to do here. Call this transaction type. So now what we can do is we can build a default form. So as you can see, it's not that appealing yet. It's just a basic form based off of the field settings that we defined. I can do that for both applications, but we can actually modify some of these. So if I take one of these fields and actually select all my controls, I can align these fields so that they're uniform to each other. So as is, what we want to do when we're scanning an asset, instead of having to type in, the type, make, model, and serial, we want to be able to look that information up based on that scan. So I'm going to set these fields as a type of lookup. So we're going to look up into our asset list based on our asset tag to pull in the type for this field. We're going to do the same for make. Pull in our make fields, and we'll do the same for model. And then we'll also do for serial and date of purchase. So now if we scan an asset tag, it should look up that information if it actually finds that tag in our list. Tag, and then date of purchase, or purchase date. So location, that could be a drop-down field that we select, our current location. That could be a building, it could be a room. In this case, I'll just keep it simple. I'll add a couple rooms here. These drop-down items can actually also be populated from a text file, or you could sync those from the database or an Excel sheet. We also have an assigned to field, which can also be a drop-down of who we're actually assigning these assets to. So let's say myself, Brad, Kristen, and we'll keep it simple at that. And then we can also do a condition, which will also be a drop-down. This can be the condition of the asset. So we'll do new, good, fair, poor, or damaged. And we have a date field here. So I'm going to set that as a date time. And then once you select a date time field, you can customize how that date and time formats. So if you can pick an item from the drop down here, or even type your own format out. I'm just going to take our standard formats here for date and time. And then I can also mark this field as read only. So when we open the form, that'll automatically take the current date and time instead of having to enter that information. Lastly, we have a transaction type, so maybe we want to do an issue versus an audit. And maybe this should be our first field, so I can actually take this field and move it up to the top. So the next thing we want to do is once we actually scan and submit these transactions, now we want it to also update our asset list. If we look back to our asset table, once we scan an asset, we want it to update our asset list with the most current information, which would be our location or assigned to what its condition was and when it was last audited. So in order to do that, we're going to set up some calculated lookups. So I'm going to add some extra fields here for location, assigned to, condition, and date. And I'm going to call these, precede these with an update. So we're going to update location. We're going to update assigned to, update condition, and update date. So these are all going to be calculated fields that are going to grab data from our other fields as strings. This is actually kind of going into detail a little much, but I just want to show you how easily and quickly it is to create something that's pretty functional. So once again, we're going to set these as lookups into our asset list. Same type of idea. Based on our asset tag to look up the location. Now in this instance, we're going to check off the update source. So what that means is once we submit a record, it's going to also post this data to the source session, being the asset list. So in order to get our selected location from field 8 to this field, that's where our calculation comes into play, where we just do an add function of that location field. So we insert that. So now it's going to take the value of whatever we enter into our location field, put it into this field, and then once we submit the record, it's going to update that asset list with that current location. So we're going to do the same for our other 3 fields here. So this will be our assigned to. Do that same lookup. Assigned to, update source. Do the same for our condition. Set our calc for that to our condition fields, and lastly our date. We'll just finish our lookup for that. And that should be last modified and update source. So these fields should actually be hidden to the user, so we can mark these as not visible. And we can also set our start on field to transaction type by setting our start on field here. And the last thing we would want to do is control how this app is going to flow. So once we select a transaction type, where should it go? So we want to tell it to go to the asset tag field. And also, if we're doing a bunch of audits, we're not going to want this field to clear when we're submitting data. So I'm going to uncheck that clear on submit. So once we select the transaction type, that's always going to remain until we physically change it. So asset tag should go to, let's say, location, since all of the other information is going to be populated via that lookup. Location can go to assigned to condition. And then after we enter condition, maybe we want to auto-submit the record. So we turn on auto-submit, and then we can go back to the asset tag fields. So these other fields I'm looking up, I can make these read-only so that the user can't modify these. And now I'm going to go ahead and rebuild my form. So I'll just make it look a little bit nicer, line some of these fields up. You can also change colors, fonts, boldness, font color. So I could change the background of this form to, let's say, a steel blue. Change our labels also to steel blue. And change our text or fore color to white. And maybe I want to change our button color to like a navy type blue. And our fore color also white. And maybe we want to make those bold as well. So let me just align some of these. Okay, so now I can actually push this out to my device. Let me connect a device. And just a reminder to folks, if you do have any questions on anything I'm doing right now, feel free to type them into the question panel, and we'll address those questions at the end of the webinar. I'm just getting my device connected here. So while I'm actually waiting for that to connect, I'm going to configure our syncing, or how we're going to sync this data to the device. So we have our Access database here, and you're probably wondering, how are we going to get this data to the device? So that's using something called TracerPlus Connect. So this is an easy-to-use tool to actually map your TracerPlus data to the database of your choice, whether that be ODBC or Excel or even text files. So one thing I've actually done already is I've created a Windows data source for my database. So I'm going to create a new project. And the first thing I want to do is add a profile. So we have two types of profiles, one being a sync profile, one being a live profile. When using a live profile, that's actually going to allow you to post data in real time versus a sync profile that will allow you to sync the data back and forth, whether that be cradled or via a wireless type sync. So I'm just going to marry our newly created project, which was called IT Asset Track. And I'm just going to create a quick sync process to pull that asset data to our device. So our source being ODBC, and we'll choose my IT asset data source, and then I can choose between the two tables available, one being the asset list. And then on the TracerPlus side, I can also select asset list. Then you'll see that these fields marry up to each other in the mapping. Then I'll just simply go to our post type options. So when I sync that data to the device, I'm going to have it overwrite. So I'm just going to save this. And if I just jump over to Data Viewer, here's the same data that's in our database. And if I go to my device, which happens to be misbehaving at the current moment, of course. Let me try a different device here. Sorry, folks. I wanted to finish this up a little quicker. Let me just connect this other device.
I can also jump in here, and it'd be a good time that, so while we give away the design tool so that the end user can create their own mobile application, PTS does provide a service to create the application for you. So if, this is something that's of interest to you, but you don't feel that you could create the application, please feel free to contact us, and we can talk about that.
All right, so here's my connected Motorola device here. I'm just going to deploy this to our device. This is going to push over my application. And once that application actually pushes over, it's going to automatically launch TracerPlus for us. And we should see our asset scan and asset list session. So I'm just going to check for any residual data here. I'm just going to clear that out. And what we're going to do is sync over our asset list to our device. So I'm going to jump back over to Connect. There's a few ways you can actually sync data, one being from the Management Studio itself, or you can actually add sync buttons to the form to actually trigger those syncs, also do time syncs. And like I said, you could operate in live mode where you're posting that data in real time. So you'll see how quick that sync just took place. I synced my 10 assets over. You'll see that it looks very similar or the same as our database here. So if I were to actually edit one of these, we could see that it's missing some of this information. So now I'm going to go to our asset scan session real quick. Select our transaction type. Let's say it's an issue. Scan our asset. There you'll see that it does our lookups of type, make, model, serial, and date of purchase. Now I can select the location, who I'm assigning it to, and its current condition, which should auto-submit that record for us, and bringing us back to the asset tag field to scan a second asset. So I'll just scan that quickly. I'll just show you the results, and then we'll move on to the next part of our presentation. So now looking back at our asset list, if I edit this record, you'll see that now, since I've audited or issued that asset, we have a location, who it's assigned to, its condition, and when it was last modified. So I could then take this data, sync it back to our database, and it would update our assets within our database. But we're a little short on time, so I'm not really going to dive into that. So with that being said, I'm going to open up our presentation again here. We're going to pass this over to Scott Sloan from the main WIC program. So Scott, you have the floor. When you want me to change slides, just tell me next slide.
Okay, great. Yeah, so let me just say thanks for the opportunity to present the project that I'm working on. So that's a wonderful little picture of me. I was hired by the state of Maine back in January to help facilitate moving the Women and Infants Benefits Program. It's a USDA-sponsored program over to electronic processing for retailers. And as such, we needed a product for a particular sub-project that we have, and TracerPlus is a solution that we went with based on the recommendation of Montana, actually. So go ahead and move to the next slide. All right, next one. Great. So the project that we have is the USDA has 55 organizations in the United States that do processing of food benefits. Pretty much it's a paper gap system, and they're making it a requirement now to be electronic. So as such, they've basically instituted a nationwide project that's gone on now for about 10 years by the time it ends. It's looking at ending in 2020. And with the state of Maine, we're currently working with 250 retailers, and that's affecting approximately 14,000 families. Go ahead, next slide. So who we're working with are major retailers that some of you may work with before, like Walmart, SuperValu, Delhaize. Delhaize does Food Lion. They own a lot of grocery stores throughout the United States. Independent Grocers Association, and our smaller retailers that have the bodegas. And what we need to do for this project, because we're going electronically, is that the state of Maine and all these other WIC organizations need to create a comprehensive UPC database based on their state. So we can't create a national one. We have to do one based on each one of our states. So as such, we looked at TracerPlus because one of the things is it has a mobile platform, it has a barcode scanning capability which natively reads UPCs, that we can now go out to these retailers and scan products and verify if they say that they're WIC approved. You know, we can validate against that, and various other reasons that we have to collect the UPCs. Go ahead, next slide, please. Right now, what we're looking at with the UPC collection is that we're collecting approximately 25,000 unique UPCs for things like cereal and milk and eggs in there. And again, we needed a method to do that and validate it. TracerPlus was a really good solution for us. And we also needed a method that allowed us to upscale what we're doing. So TracerPlus has got some really neat features that we're learning, such as, hey, it's really quick and easy to make the forms, as you saw in the demonstration. It's really simple for us to dump that out into a spreadsheet for our own massaging, but it's also nice, too, that there's a data connector that will upscale to a larger architecture that we're working with. Go ahead to the next slide. So what we were looking for is some things like a common off-the-shelf solution, because we could have gone to our internal OIT department and had them develop, which means they were coded. We would have to bring in business analysts, project managers, and as was said earlier, TracerPlus is great because it lets us do exactly what we need, and we don't have to bring a lot of people involved with it. So it was nice that we can use standard off-the-shelf hardware. It's a standard off-the-shelf product that works and gets us what we need without needing a lot of technical back-end to support it for us. Go ahead, next slide. So the nice part about it is that TracerPlus we found to be very cost-effective. Like I said, there was no need for us to get involved in finding expertise in mobile software development and basically stick building an application. TracerPlus is really great because it's kind of a WYSIWYG GUI interface, drag, drop, couple point and clicks, and we're off to the races. So made a small learning curve. So my business analyst picked up TracerPlus and within 2 weeks had this thing nailed down of what they wanted to do. And it wasn't a solid 2 weeks. It was just we've had it a couple weeks. We picked at it here, picked at it there, but we actually got it off the ground very, very quickly. And we're looking at some of the more advanced features like data integration. So, so again, we're very happy with the product, and again, really simple to use for the common person. Next slide. So this is a representation of really what we're getting at in the larger picture is that on the left-hand side, we have all these vendor products that we have to scan. So we will implement 3 mobile devices because they're not a very large department because we're a state organization. They will go out and they will collect new UPCs and validate them. And as you can see in the workflow here, the mobile devices go to a workstation, which would be the TracerPlus workstation using TracerPlus Connect. And then from there, when we build in the rules, it will actually tie in to our SQL Server farm, where we're actually having one of our internal people who handles our main system develop us a centralized UPC database and a couple simple web pages that we can maintain that. So what's nice is that this whole workflow allows us to be out in the field with a mobile device, collect the data that we need with the workflow rules that we need, upload that data, bring it into a larger system to provide more access to that information, so like internal reporting and internal authorization, and it creates a nice little feedback loop. So this mobile, TracerPlus mobile with mobile hardware snaps in nicely with our overall picture of creating this UPC database, being able to maintain it, being able to validate it, and we've done it very, very, very much on a shoestring budget. That so much that over the next couple months we're having a lot of national conventions and we're going to be showing this type of solution to the other states that will be doing WIC and letting them know here is a way to do this and do this on a very low budget. There have been other states like the state of Florida have built their own, put it on laptops, bought like PSC barcode readers and spent thousands of dollars on a solution that really isn't mobile, but to collect the same kind of information for us. So TracerPlus has been really, really integral in taking care of this for us for our project. So, and that's all that I have.
All right, so next presenter will be Bob Petrosek from Brookhaven National Laboratory.
Hi, I'm Bob Petrosek from Brookhaven National Laboratory. We've implemented RFID technology here at the laboratory to track our chemicals that we have in many of our labs throughout the whole site. Just a quick overview of Brookhaven National Laboratory. We're a Department of Energy laboratory, one of many here in the United States. We're located here in New York in Upton. It's a fairly large facility. We have 5,300 acres and 302 buildings. We have almost 3,000 full-time employees and some 4,400 user facilities using our labs and facilities. We do anything from particle physics to climate change, biological system sciences, and collider accelerated type functions. Next slide, please. I was given the project to convert our system here at the laboratory, which is an optical barcode system. Every chemical that comes on site gets an optical barcode. The chemical information is obtained from the labeling on the container and entered into our system. We also rate the chemical as far as its hazard, and it goes into our database also. So I was given a project to make it more efficient. We were having a problem with our users not deleting their inventory after they consumed the products out in the field. They weren't transferring their chemicals from room to room or from building to building, so the inventory was reflecting the wrong inventories in a building. So if we wanted to sum up the flammables in one building and sum them up in another building, those sums would not be right, and we wouldn't be meeting the building codes of New York State here. So we were looking for a way to increase the accuracy. We were also looking to decrease the time it takes to do a re-inventory in the field. Also, we're looking to, because of the increases in efficiency in doing inventories, we were looking to reduce chemical exposures to people by having less chemicals here on site. We also wanted to locate some of our more hazardous chemicals so we can inspect them and test them. And of course, we were trying to do this with a small staff. Next slide, please. The scope of the project is, on site we have approximately 41,000 chemical containers. They're spread throughout half of the buildings on site, or about 150 buildings. And the number of rooms that we have to do inventories on is greater than 1,100 rooms. So that's the scope of the project. We started the project, we started it back in 2012. We did a 3-month testing phase. We were in contact with PTS to help with determining what type of scanners we would use, what type of tags we would use, and they would help us with some of the testing that we wanted to do to decide make those decisions. So after 3 months of testing, we kind of decided on a specialized tag that we came up. We called it a flag tag. We designed it ourselves, and it uses an RFID tag that's approximately 1 inch by 1 inch. It's folded in half with little tabs on the end. Everything is clear except the label that sticks out, so that when we put it on a chemical container, we do not hide any of the information that's on the chemical container. We're not allowed by OSHA regulations to hide any information that's on those containers. We went out in the field and we tested different configurations of the label to see which ones read better, which ones did not. We looked for problems with reading the tags, such as metal cabinets, flam cabinets where you could see through into a flam cabinet or not. So we tested many different configurations out in the field, and we basically decided on a particular RFID tag size. Size was a good concern. We didn't want a very large tag. We wanted something of a reasonable size. Some of our containers can be, 1-gallon containers, or they could be very small little vials of samples. So we had to coordinate that with the size of the tag. So we went through the whole testing. We selected the tags. We selected our equipment. Then we did about a 2-month rollout where we got basically our first printer, the tags. We printed our own tags. We started tagging everything that was coming in on site, and then we started testing in the field, going out into the field, designing a session in TracerPlus, which would allow us to read the old barcode, the optical barcode, and then be able to print the new RFID tag. And we would do that in the field, do it out wirelessly, and place those tags, those new RFID tags, on the containers, and then be able to follow up and do a re-inventory as soon as we finish taking the entire room. So that was about a 2-month period to get that going. So now we've been out in the field for 7 to 8 months, fine-tuning some of the systems, fine-tuning our backbone database and the interfaces, and getting tagging done. So if you go to the next page. Okay, the scanners we originally had the MC55 optical scanners. We were using those for the in-field re-inventories using optical technology. We upgraded up to the MC9100 RFID type scanners. We went with those in particular because they are very good locators. They're a little stronger and have a more narrow beam, so they're very good in locating chemicals. We have approximately 7 or 8 of the MC91s right now. Our first printer was the Zebra 110XI4 RFID printer, just tied into our network. That's how we generate our original barcodes when we go out in the field. And then during the process of getting out in the field, we purchased 2 wireless printers so that we could have the actual printing done out in the field. So we'd be in a lab, we'd read barcodes, print them directly to the printer, and apply them right to the chemicals on site. Next slide, please. At the present time, we're approximately 30% complete of the 45,000 chemicals that we're trying to barcode. So a lot of our users like our new RFID locator function. That function helps them save time in locating chemicals. If you can imagine trying to find one small vial in a lab with 1,000 chemicals, it can be very time-consuming. If they were looking for a chemical and they couldn't find it in the past, then they would have to go out and buy another chemical. So they would have to replace the chemical, and that would be a cost. So that's been avoided. And of course, if you have more chemicals, it means more waste at the end. So we save the cost there also. Our safety and health personnel also found the locator to be very good because they could go out and find our high hazard chemicals out there for inspection and testing to make sure that the users are safely storing and testing their chemicals. Re-inventories are now done in a fraction of the time it took to do the optical barcodes. When we did optical barcodes, it would take 2 people approximately 4 to 8 hours during a day to go out and do one lab of medium-sized lab of about 400 to 800 chemicals. Now we can do it in probably less than 30 minutes with really basically one person, and that includes, basically the setup time and looking at and resolving any issues that we see during the inventory. So it's saving a lot of time out there. And I think that's all the slides I have.
Brad again, and I just wanted to quickly thank Bob and Scott for the presentations and just give a little really goes on in a real implementation. The next presenter is going to be Rob Skoblicki from Motorola Solutions. Like I said, we've known Rob for many years. Just a little bit about Motorola and the portion that of Motorola that Rob is with. He's with the Symbol, the former Symbol division. They specialize in rugged handhelds, and I'll just give a little bit of what we've seen with rugged versus the craze of BYOD. And where BYOD does have its place in a lot of these applications, especially with the type of applications that Bob and Scott are talking about, really you need a life of a handheld. And we have customers currently who are using handhelds that they've purchased from Symbol that are going on 9 to 10 years of a lifespan with that handheld. Now that's not great from the sales perspective because we'd really like to sell them new handhelds, but from the end user, think about that. How many installs can you even say with mobile technology like a cell phone would last a year to 2 years? And it's not uncommon, and I'm sure Rob's going to go through it all, where we see 3 to 5 years, and like I said, in rare instances, sometimes even longer. Anyway, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rob. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Brad, and welcome everybody to the webinar. As Brad said, I'm the local account manager for Motorola Solutions. I've been with the company for 14 years. I was with Symbol Technologies before that, before we got acquired by Motorola. I cover the New York Metro, so basically New York City, Northeast New Jersey, and all of Long Island. I've known PTS for, as Brad said, 14 years. PTS is a strategic mobility partner for Motorola. And when I'm working with my customers out there, they're one of the partners I tend to recommend very frequently. So today what I want to do is talk a little bit about the different hardware options that are available to you that work well with the PTS software suite. I think we all know at the end of the day, and this is evidenced by the 2 presenters you just had, the hardware really becomes a doorstop to the customer without a software application or a solution running on it, right? So the solution and the software would make the most sense. It's important that the Motorola team works with the PTS team to make sure everything works together seamlessly so that you as the customer get the best possible experience you can from the solution at the end of the day. Just a quick note I wanted to make, and actually Bob, you led into this quite nicely. Some of you may have heard that Zebra Technologies has announced the intent to acquire the enterprise mobility business of Motorola Solutions. So that's the same group that I'm with. So at some point in time here later this year, we're all going to become one company. I'll be a Zebra employee. The entire portfolio of mobile computing and everything else that you see today is actually going to come over in that acquisition. And for those of you that don't know, Zebra is really a printing and an RFID company, so there's a lot of synergies that are going to exist, and they don't sell any competitive products to what we sell today in terms of mobile devices and mobile hardware. So I don't expect there to be any significant changes or modifications to the portfolio that we're bringing to market today. And certainly that's going to be a seamless transition for our customers as we move forward. So with that, we move on to the next slide. And there's probably a delay here, so just bear with me. So we really break down our, our different products into these 4 core segments. And we call them either customer-facing or field mobility, task-specific, or industrial mobility. For purposes of today's presentation, I really wanted to focus in on the field mobility stuff. These are the devices that you can use either inside the 4 walls over a wireless LAN network or outside the 4 walls over a cellular network, doing any type of application from basic inventory and data collection to asset management to field service and inspections, and essentially anything you can do with, or you might be doing with pen and paper today, be able to move that over to a mobile device environment. Lots of different stuff on here. You'll notice on the hard left, we have a tablet, an enterprise quality tablet, and then we'll go through some of these different devices, not through all of them, as we move forward here as well. And what's important to note is that we tend to bring to market a strategy, and you can move to the next slide, of what we call a good, better, or best strategy. And so we offer devices based on value and performance, based on the needs of what the customer is looking to accomplish, that can meet their needs across all segments. And so for purposes of today, I'm probably going to only pick 4 of probably our most popular products out to really highlight for you. But I did want to give you a flavor for at least the diversity of products that we have in the portfolio. You'll notice here on the left as well, we kind of break them down by what we call traditional legacy OS or key-based products, and now newer OS and touch-centric products. And I have a slide dedicated to Android versus Windows, so I'm not really going to get into that right now. But I guess what's important for you to walk away from is that we support both styles, both types of devices. Next slide, please. So when you look at the value tier, or that left-hand side of the equation, what we try to do is stuff a lot of technology into a product and a platform that is priced effectively enough for certain users to be able to go out and afford, essentially. And that's really where the MC45 comes in. It was really designed to have some of the core features, like give you the flexibility to have cellular technology inside of it, give you a dedicated 1D barcode scanner instead of just having to use a camera, for example, to read barcodes, and basically get all that technology into a form factor that's nice and small and deliver it to the customer at a fairly reasonable cost point advantage. I don't really know, what else I want to talk about on this slide other than that, as you move up the profile list, you'll see we have some devices that offer you AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, or even T-Mobile or any GSM carrier, essentially. And for purposes of the MC45, we really narrowed it down to AT&T and T-Mobile, or GSM more specifically, which allowed us to keep some of that cost out of having to fall into the product. So the 45 is great. I'll call it an entry-level product to do some basic data collection, mobility, and it can be used either inside the 4 walls or outside the 4 walls, taking advantage of a cellular radio or Wi-Fi. Next slide, please. The next one would be the MC55, and actually Bob referred to this in his presentation. It's the product they started out with. So it's a great little device form factor. It moves up on the scale of ruggedness and durability. It does have a dedicated either a 1D laser scanner or a 2D imager inside of it, so it takes a step up from there. In addition, you get the megapixel camera. It's IP rated and mil standard for 810G. It can handle 6-foot drops to concrete. You'll notice the processor, and the only reason I'm pointing this out is as we move to the next products, you'll start to notice some of the differences here. But we put high-quality displays in these products. They're basically fast enough and formidable enough to do what you need and take a little bit of a beating from your users as well and come back for more. Next slide would actually take us into, I believe it's the MC67. So this is really our flagship, what I'll call outside the 4 walls mobile computer. So for customers that need devices to go out and perform a task and take advantage of either doing that in a batch mode or in a cellular mode, using the cellular radio to communicate back to the servers. This product really seems to be, the icing on the cake right now. So, before I talked about the processor, just to point it out and highlight it, this moves to a true dual-core processor. It's a full VGA pen-tile display, so they're super bright, and they also require less power consumption from the battery. The MC67 is available with a dual WAN radio, so you can run either AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, or Verizon on these devices, and you don't actually have to send them into our service depots to get those updated. You can actually software switch those things on the fly should you have needs to do that. This device would have an onboard 802.1180G and wireless radio. Megapixel camera goes to 8. It's an 8-foot drop spec versus a 6-foot drop spec, etc. So this is a pretty high-end device. One of the trends I'm starting to see as well is that even for customers that are looking for devices that are going to remain inside the four walls, they never need a cellular connection, they only want to use Wi-Fi, the performance of a device like this is so good that they're actually willing to spend a little bit more money for those devices, and they just won't ever turn the cellular radio on the device and have to set it up with the carrier. The MC67 is probably the first product we have that also can be available to you with either a Windows embedded handheld operating system or an Android operating system. So it gives you some unique flexibility in that sense as well. Next slide, please. The next one I wanted to highlight is the TC55, and this is really one of the newest products to our portfolio today. It is strictly an Android-based device. It is a full touchscreen, so it doesn't have the traditional keypad layouts that you're used to with the legacy Symbol Technologies and Motorola portfolios. It does have a dedicated 1D scanner in the top of it. So as some of you have learned or that you can certainly decode barcodes by taking a picture of them with a camera. But it takes a long time for the software to actually decode that, and if you have a lot of scanning to do, it's not really the best way to go. So having a dedicated scanner becomes really critical for applications that actually drive the need for the scanner a lot. Some other things on that, we're going to get again into the OS strategy, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time highlighting it. But it's just important to know that we're supporting different types of devices for users today. Most of you that have used our device in the past, you're familiar with the more rugged, more durable, more biggie, more bulky style devices. And I think what you're seeing now, especially in the TC55, is our capabilities to take some of that technology and integrate it into a device that's more familiar to most consumers today, give it a look, the feel, and the style of a consumer device, but give you some of that rugged durability and enterprise requirements that you might need as a business user. Next slide, please. Discussion also came up before about RFID. So Motorola and soon-to-be Zebra Technologies are also significant players in the RFID space. We're a performance and deployment leader. We have best-in-class read range and decode rates amongst our entire portfolio. We sell a complete line of both fixed and portable RFID readers. So what you're seeing here are mostly all the portable stuff, but we also have a whole suite of fixed devices with different antenna setup, etc. Interest in RFID has been growing and gaining a significant amount of momentum. I'm probably, between myself and Kristen at PTS, we're engaged probably in 10 active projects right now with local customers, all having an interest in figuring out how they can implement RFID, and those are just the ones I'm working on with her specifically. And so in addition to having, the interest in RFID and some people looking to make investments in RFID right up front, we have devices like you see the RFD 5500, which is a UHF RFID sled. So for customers that may have made investments in like an MC55 or an MC65 or MC67 technology, but may want to consider adding RFID at a certain point in time, you can purchase a product like that, still benefit from all the same features and functionality they have with the device, and now stick it into a sled, and now that device can not only read barcodes, but also can read the RFID tags as well. So that's a newer device in our portfolio today, but it basically is allowing you to future-proof some of your investments as well. Something else I'll just point out here real quick, because you've probably seen it a couple times, is the name Scion. So for those of you that don't know, Scion Technologies was a competitor to Symbol Technologies and Motorola back in the day. About 2 years ago, Motorola decided to acquire Scion, And so basically we have all those products in our portfolio now as well, and they fill some unique needs. So where most of the Motorola products are focused around UHF RFID technology, the Scion portfolio introduces some HF and LF devices to that mix as well. So now we not only service one segment of the RFID space, but we pretty much can deliver products to service the entire segment for RFID. Next slide, please. So I said I was going to get into a little bit of a discussion around the operating system, and I won't take this one too far. But at the end of the day, there are a tremendous amount of dynamics that are happening right now with where mobile operating systems are headed. Historically, we were always a Windows Mobile or a Windows CE shop, right? So we were very, very aligned with Microsoft and their OS strategy. And Microsoft's strategy has been evolving as of late, and you guys probably also know that Microsoft certainly is not the de facto standard when it comes to OS deployments basically across the globe for mobile devices today. In fact, Android is really leading that market right now. So, I mean, our strategy, at least at this point in time, is really going to be a dual strategy. We're going to continue to work with and develop devices that can support the Microsoft products like Windows Embedded Handheld or even CE7 and whatever the future roadmap is for Windows, whether it be Windows 8, et cetera. But we're also, at the same time, in parallel, developing devices that can run the Android OS. And in certain scenarios, developing devices like the MC67 or the MC9200 that have the ability to run either OS, even to the point where if you buy it with a Windows Embedded Handheld OS today, you could convert that OS to an Android OS at some point in time down the road should you want to. Next slide, please. So just a little bit more comments on Android and Motorola. We don't just slap a vanilla Android operating system on our devices. I think what we've learned is that, especially in the case of most of our customers, because it's a business-to-business, right? So enterprise users and consumer users are very different in their needs and wants and interests. And there's a lot of things that come standard on a vanilla Android device, like Google Mobility Services, Google Play Store, et cetera, that open enterprises up to potential risks and sharing of information and disclosures that they may not necessarily want to disclose. So what we've done here is we've taken a strategy where we introduce products that are available with either the we'll call it the standard OSs that you can get today on consumer smartphones with Google Mobility Services and everything else. But then we also have a premium version at no additional cost, by the way, which basically locks down some additional things. So we do some improvements for data capture, for mobile management, also significantly around security and connectivity. Again, we're keeping the enterprise user in mind and making sure that all of our focus is around how much integration and effort it takes to run a business device versus running a consumer device. And just a couple of examples of what that means. So we talked about Google Mobility Services and sharing and disclosing information and all the things you sign up for when you accept those terms. Enterprises may not want to do that. They may not want to give up that information or know that Google is somewhere collecting it to potentially be used for what God knows what at some point in time in the future. Also, updates and releases. We all have consumer smartphones today, and we all know that you get notified every other Thursday that there's an update, and most of the times we'll just go ahead and update it. Well, if you're running a business application from TracerPlus or anybody else in that scenario, that update could actually mess up or hang or basically paralyze the software application. So instead of giving the users the ability to control it, Motorola extensions basically allow for IT to manage and control that. And we did some other unique stuff as well, like application whitelisting, essentially that allows you to determine exactly what applications can and cannot run on the device. We do encryption of data storage of the internal memory as well as what's on the SD card. We have the enterprise home screen feature, which essentially allows you to launch a device to a specific application or a very specific screen. Again, keeping your employees focused on doing their job and their task and not getting distracted by all the other things you can do with consumer smartphone technology today. And last, obviously, multi-user flexibility. So instead of having to have dedicated devices for every employee, these devices give you the flexibility to have multiple logins. Multiple users can use the same device and still have privacy information and dedicated encrypted and secured information that one employee might need access to, which another employee may not have access to as well. So just a little bit of flavor on what we got going on with Android. Next slide, please. This really basically just reinforces what I just said. So, we obviously continue to protect legacy investments you've made with the Windows embedded handheld or CE handheld. At the same time, we're bringing forth lots of newer operating system choices and flexibility today, and putting Motorola extensions, quote unquote, on there as well. And one of the third things we do as a company is try to come up with ways to develop software applications to essentially future-proof your investments, so that as partners or customers are developing applications using and take advantage of these tools, that essentially they can convert those fairly seamlessly to future devices when and if that makes sense for their business. Next slide, and this is my last slide. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, but I did want to at least point it out. There's an explosion of consumer devices that we see in the enterprise today. And all customers think, well, I can use this iPad to do this job, or I can use this mobile phone or the Samsung device to do this job. And I think what we're starting to realize, and what our customers are starting to realize, is that that's not necessarily always the case. In some cases it might work out well, but in lots of cases it will not work out well. And this is just an example of two completely independent agencies, first is VDC Research, second is Aberdeen Group, that have done some studies and basically evaluated and said, look, yeah, from an IT management perspective, it will cost you more money than you think to run consumer devices in your environment. And so there's a significant play for, why you might be willing to pay or make an investment in a little bit more for a mobile technology that's designed for the enterprise, the business user, and not the consumer, versus things that are designed for the consumer and not the enterprise. So with that was my last slide. I don't need to take too much of your time. I just want to say thank you. Any Motorola questions that you have in the future can be directed to your PTS team, and they'll be happy to get you in touch with your local Motorola account representative. And Brad, I'll turn it back to you guys. Thank you.
Sorry about that. So anyway, thanks, Rob, for that excellent presentation. It gave a nice snapshot of what's going on at Motorola, and really gives a lot of information that leads us to be better informed for our decisions. Okay. I think with that, we're winding down. It was a little longer than we expected. We thought we were going to go in an hour, and we went in an hour and a half. A lot of information to digest. Thanks to Joe and Kristen for putting together a great webinar, and thanks to our presenters, and thanks to Motorola for sponsoring this. And if anyone has questions, please feel free to email us at TracerPlus.com. You'll see the website here. We also have, we'd get slapped by our marketing department if we didn't mention our YouTube channel. We have a Facebook page, a Twitter page, and most importantly, our LinkedIn area. Feel free to link in with anyone you've seen on the webinar today. A lot of good information in our TracerPlus group online as well. Okay, with that said, I don't see any more questions. We are going to close the webinar, and once again, thanks everybody for taking the time today.